Spirit of Life is proudly sponsored by Mattress Oz, mattressesareus.com.au.
Hello, welcome to Spirit of Life. I'm Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Rosemarie Cole. Last week she shared about her life story and how she's written a book, and this week she'll continue sharing about her life story. Welcome, Rosemarie. It's lovely to have you back.
Thank you, Geraldine.
Rosemarie, you shared about how you had this challenging childhood background, and you were amidst the going to Burma and then coming to Australia, and your parents, going through post-traumatic stress, and then you having an arranged marriage, and then that all led you to start writing a book about having hope amidst your life and lighting a candle. I'd love to hear more about that journey and how you started writing your second book too.
Mm-hmm. It's strange, because the first book stayed just as it was. It was supposed to be a diary at first. And I always wondered why I hadn't actually done anything about that. But I think that there was more for God to let me live. And I remarried in 1996. And my husband was not well when I met him, but his condition has deteriorated and he is on the live liver transplant list, waiting. But what has happened is that I have witnessed other people going through similar stages of adjusting to illness, and also the people that we've met through the hospital, and many people that we have met and got to know. They've been over to our home. Some have made it through to transplant, some haven't. But what we've learned is that I felt that I could write about my journey. And what happened was I was interviewed by one of the chaplains at the hospital. And she said to me, "I've spoken to you for 2.5 hours. Would you be able to put that down for others to listen to?" And I said, "How many chapters would you like?" Because I thought this was longer than 1 minute. So I did. And I wrote 9 chapters, and 8 of those chapters have been made into an audio book through a very patient audio engineer, and it'll be published.
About your carers.
For carers.
Yes, that's wonderful. Also, to recap, so after you forgave your mother and she passed away, then you found another husband. And how old were you when you got married?
Okay. Just a little opposite to that. They passed away. My mother passed away in the year 2000. My dad, 1999. Mm-hmm. So they met my husband. They were there for 3 years and 4 years. So they were very happy with me.
Oh,
yes.
That's good.
And also they had become in their 80s to nearly 90. And I felt that I was then encouraging them in their final journeys. And that was a help for both of us, I do believe, more so than they would realise how it affected me. So with dealing with that and forgiveness and moving ahead, it it brought me to a place where I was comfortable in being myself.
Mm.
And
And how did you actually help them in their final journey? Did you speak to them and encourage them to talk about their lives? Is that how you did it?
I did. I seemed to be the one that they approached. And it was easier. It was so easy because I was then not just the daughter. I approached it as two people who had lived a good life, but a very unique life and a very complicated set of circumstances. And it was a very difficult transition, I think, after the war. Okay, that may have overlanched on me, but they were still my parents and I respected them. So then when they were needing support,
during
yes,
their age,
and encouragement, I think it was easier for me to write about life. And being a carer made it even easier because I could identify and empathise.
Yes, when you say a carer for your husband, is it like were you doing physical care every day, or how many hours would it take, and what sort of things did you need to do?
He's rather good because I don't let him be too dependent on me, and he isn't. He's just a beautiful person, and if you met him down the street, you would know that he wasn't well, but he would never direct people's sympathy towards him. He would always ask, how's your family? How are you going? What's happening in your life? He taught me a lot about being a caring person before he was diagnosed, I suppose, 4 years ago, that his liver no longer could function properly. So that's when we had to be on the pre-liver transplant list. Then he deteriorated again, and we are now on the live liver transplant list.
You'll be in my prayers. Does that mean that you need to cook for him and do all the housework, and is he on oxygen, things like that?
No, he goes through stages. There's big words like encephalopathy that I've had to learn, and I said that quite well. There's a bullous pemphigoid, which affects you.
So there's all sort of bodily things. Yeah.
And it's cyclical.
Yeah.
It comes
and goes. Yeah. So you've been by his side supporting him all through it.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Rosemarie, we need to go for a break now. Okay. You have been watching Spirit of Life. We'll be back after the break. Hello, welcome back to Spirit of Life. I'm Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Rosemarie Cole. She's been sharing about a book she's written on carers. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Rosemarie, when you were talking about carers, you also spoke in your book about having hope, or having peace amidst chaos, rather. I'm very fascinated about that because I've experienced quite a lot of chaos in my life. So I'd like to know how to have peace in chaos.
Peace, I feel, is something that it's a gift. We search for peace in so many distractions, and we can't find it, because I do believe that the peace that we are searching for is human peace, the quietness or a movie or a distraction of a book or something. But inner peace is something that I've had to discover, and it has something to do with that connection that I find myself needing so often as a carer. There is so much chaos and the life-changing situations that we come up with, and not just for my husband, they sort of affect me as well, in a different way. But I do feel that as a carer, you need to disassociate from those distractions of what is normal. Searching to yourself, into yourself, or your inner self, inner spirit, it's quite a difficult thing, because it's very vulnerable. Illness is a leveling tool. It makes one very vulnerable.
Yes. When you talked about, when you said disassociating, did you mean to separate yourself, maybe not physically, but just meditate? So while you're with your husband, having moments of spiritual moments of switching off from the situation, to focus on God or focus on peace. Is that what you're describing?
All of the above. Especially when people have a diagnosis that isn't positive, or a change in medications may bring something that your normal daily activity just changes. It's the person changes, their personality seems to change, and you, unfortunately, or a carer or someone close to the person, they change too. In a way we have to, but we can do it with respect, and we can do it with an inner peace. That disassociates what's happening to the person that you're caring for from yourself, so that when I want to scream because I can't cope anymore, it isn't against my husband himself, it's against the disease, and I'm fighting the disease, not my husband. So I'm constantly disassociating myself with that condition. So to bring myself to inner peace, I have to disassociate myself in a way that I go for a few days as a carer's respite. I've written about that. But people sometimes can't escape, as I can, to be in a different place. So I go to the beach, or I might go somewhere. Some people can only be in their own home. So my audiobook is designed for those people and those times when you need immediate help for the situation and there isn't anyone there. The doctors, the nurses, and all of the social workers, they're there with a phone call anytime, we know that. But sometimes you don't want to disturb someone if there's something happening in your life. You just don't feel you can involve family, friends. It's too much to take on. So I'm hopingly showing them, or teaching, or just guiding them through their own chaos to find a place of peace.
Yeah, so like maybe techniques like meditations or hearing your voice on the CD?
Puts me to sleep.
So you listen to your own voice and put on your CD?
I have done. I do tend to read it and listen to it over and over, because I think of it in not sometimes a Christian way, where we are speaking to people that are ill in a hospital situation. They may have lost faith, they may not have faith. So I need to be more caring for them.
Yes. So it is almost like I'm just asking you rather, like something that treats the person or comforts the person, so they can separate themselves from the tragedy or the stress of looking after when someone gets bad news about their results, all those things that could make you want to scream, but instead you go to the tape, you go to take a few deep breaths, you meditate, you listen to your voice on the CD. Is that kind of what you're moving towards?
I still think it goes even further back to my childhood and the lives of the saints. Not that I am a saint, but it means that you're listening to someone or reading about someone who's gone through something similar. And that means that you're not alone. And most people are suffering alone. You don't need to be alone. You don't have to. There are people to reach out to.
Yes, so it's the lives of the saints that people can read about, or tapes. Now we've got our internet too.
It's all there.
Yeah, it's endless. And that gives comfort to other carers, especially because you've been through it.
Yes. And I do believe that my life story, or the way I live, is a way of opening my own life for anyone to relate to or learn from.
It's very inspiring, but we need to go for a break. You're watching Spirit of Life. Stay with us and we'll be back after the break. Hello, welcome back to Spirit of Life. I'm Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Rosemarie Cole. She's an author of an audiobook for carers. Welcome back.
Thank you,
Rosemarie, and it's been great, hearing about your book for carers. It'll be such a great support because there are many carers in our society.
Yes.
You wrote a chapter on believing footprints. I'd like to get to know more about what you meant.
I was on a few days respite leave to a beach on the Port Phillip Bay area, it's Rosebud, and I sat and watched the sunset, and it was the most amazing experience because there wasn't anyone on the beach. I really felt as if the sunset was a scene for me. It was an amazing sunset. It was brilliant. There was clouds and the ocean and everything was just perfect, and I was drinking it in. And I wanted to be part of the scene. I felt so peace, and I felt the calmness that I searched for everywhere, and I couldn't find it in the chaos that I was living in. And I walked for a while, took some photographs, and then I came back and sat on a bit of a tuft of grass, and I'm still watching this beautiful scene. And I looked at the footprints around me. There was no one there, but of course the people had left footprints. And I'm saying that because it was relevant to what happened. I say in the book, have you ever seen a miracle? Well, you will today. Because I experienced what I class as only a miracle could be. Because when I was watching the footprints, I looked at them and I thought that that's where I had been walking. Some of those footprints were mine. And I heard a voice, a beautiful voice say, "You are a footprint." Just like that. And I said, "What? Who was that?" What was that? I'm a footprint. And it was in the sands of time.
Wow.
And I thought, I am a footprint? I sat there for a while. I arrived at 5:30, I left at 8 p.m. So I didn't know how long I'd been in this position. But I realized, looking at the footprints, that my life was a footprint and I mattered. And I thought, if this was a footprint, I'll have that footprint there until the tide comes in. So when I went back to the house, I was writing about this and it just flowed. Of course, the footprint will be there as long as the tide doesn't come and remove the footprint, but it doesn't mean that my life didn't matter. It means that I am here now in my circumstance, in my time, in my place, for a reason. And even though the tide will come, as it does and has done for eons of time, it doesn't mean that another footprint won't take my place. It doesn't mean that another life won't come and take my life, my place, but it does mean that I matter to God now.
Wow.
In my life. It is, as long as I realize that, my footprint will remain. Because what I wrote was that one day the tide will come back and we will be called to be united with the universal deity of the eternal. And I thought, where did that come from? That was very poignant, but it was true. So it doesn't frighten me.
Death doesn't frighten you?
No, not at all. The future doesn't frighten me.
Wow.
But living and not doing something about a gift that you've been given is wrong.
Yes.
So I believe that that gift was not just meant for me. It was meant for anyone who needs to hear it.
Wow, that's beautiful.
That we are here in this place and time, and we matter.
Yes, that's very sacred. It's very deep, and it reminds me of the GROW program, the mental health GROW. I used to go to because I suffered depression, and one of the sayings we had that Father Con Keo made was, everyone has a purpose. Everyone has a unique place and part in God's work. Your life is precious. Everyone has a unique place and part in God's work. So that reminds me a lot of about the footprint.
Well, it would be if it's the Spirit that gives a message, it's the same Spirit, just to different people who need to hear it, I guess.
Yes.
That's nice.
Yeah, no, that's very powerful, because that message, it really speaks to me.
It was a very powerful message. I have to be honest with you and say it's not the first time that I've had this encounter, but if I do, it just filled me with such joy. I had to bounce it off someone. I had to write about it. I had to just had to be shared, I think. Just something so wonderful had to be shared.
It's a great place to be, because what you're saying to me is that you're not holding on to life too tightly. That in a sense, when people hold things too tightly in life, they get very anxious, don't they? But what exudes out of you is a lot of peace.
Oh, it is a gift. As faith is a gift, I do believe.
Yes, because it sounds to me like describing your husband, that unless he gets a donor, he's not going to be on this earth that much longer. Is that? Yeah.
You have to trust in God for the good or the not so good, the happy and the not so happy, whatever He has planned, and that is so difficult to say, "Thy will be done." They are the toughest words I ever had to reflect on.
So and trusting in God is one of your chapters. And and how will people who want to know more about you? What could they do?
Well, things are moving quite quickly. The book will be published. The audio book will be published in July.
Yes, and I suppose people can contact Spirit of Life if they would like to keep in touch with you.
Please.
Yes.
I'd love
You've
to.
been so inspiring. Unfortunately, we have to finish our program. But I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
You've really touched my life, and I'm sure you'll touch others through this program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
Goodbye, and God bless you.
And you.
You have been watching Spirit of Life. Join us again next week. Goodbye, and God bless you.
Bring it to birth and blow where you will. Blow, blow, blow till I be but breath of the Spirit blowing in me.
Spirit of Life was proudly sponsored by Mattress Oz, mattressesarus.com.au.